Hello and welcome. This is Matthias 76. Together, we are decoding the deception, continuing today in our study of the Gospel of Luke. We're in chapter 8, beginning with verse 40. And in this section, just high overview here, what we have is this continuation of the demonstration of Jesus' power. You think of it, he calmed the storm at sea, and then he cast out the legion of demons. And now we're going to have one incident of healing that happens on the way to a situation where he's raising Jairus' daughter from the dead. Luke is setting things forth in a way that makes it very clear exactly who Jesus is, that he is Lord. He has dominion over all these things, and we don't want to lose sight of that, something that can happen when we're going through kind of section by section as opposed to just reading the whole thing at once, something I do recommend that you do. And I don't just recommend that because I'm a Bible teacher, and of course I want you to read the Bible, but for your comprehension, what you get out of this study or any study that you're doing is you go through section by section. It's good to go back, start from the beginning, and read the whole thing up to where you are, and then just keep right on going through to the end. It helps you get a lot more out of what we're doing here in this study because you connect the dots, you see the flow of things. It just gives you much more insight. Now, when Jesus returned, the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. And there came a man named Jairus, and he was a ruler of the synagogue, and falling at Jesus' feet, he implored him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter, about 12 years of age, and she was dying. Let's set the stage here. Now, when Jesus returned, well, he returned back home to Capernaum. He had gone across over to the region of the Gadarenes, Gergesenes, however you want to say it. It's called different things. And now he has come back home. And the crowd welcomed him, for they were all waiting for him. The excitement about Jesus, who he is, what he's doing, has not died down in the least. And this man Jairus comes, and Jairus is a ruler of the synagogue. Now, what exactly is that? We see that term. Do we stop to think about what it means, what this position was? It is a title. He was the leader of the synagogue, and it was a big synagogue there in Capernaum, if that is indeed where this was. Big synagogue there in Capernaum, pretty ornate structure, actually. Constructed. But what is a ruler of the synagogue? Is that like a priest? Well, no, he's not a priest. Is he a scribe? Well, no, he's not a scribe. Is he a Pharisee? Well, hard to say. We don't know. We're not told that. He's just the ruler of the synagogue. Well, what was this position? The ruler of the synagogue was a very important person. He was the guy who made sure that the synagogue was taken care of. It was a full-time job. He lived next door in a structure that was probably connected to the synagogue itself. He made sure the place was clean. He made sure that all the scrolls that they had for the reading of the scriptures were organized. He probably put out the schedule, let people know what was going on, had a lot of say in all of that. It was an important position. It is not something that has a direct comparison analog today. In our system, and the system is what it is, we have a pastor. In most congregations and most churches, that's the way it works. We have a pastor, and what does the pastor do? Well, pastor does pretty much everything. There are some people that help with different functions, but for the most part, the pastor, as far as all spiritual ministry, takes care of everything. He's a jack of all trades. Things were different then. We've got this ruler of the synagogue, very important, powerful position. And what does he do? He falls at Jesus' feet. He falls at Jesus' feet. Who else fell at Jesus' feet? Different type setting altogether, different reason for falling at his feet, perhaps, but there's also commonality there. The man possessed by the legion of demons fell at Jesus' feet. He was begging for mercy, mercy that he would not get, the demons. Here's Jairus, ruler of the synagogue, falling at Jesus' feet. Can you imagine being in such a state of despair, need, that you would fall at someone's feet? That's something that in our modern day, in the Western world, we have a hard time imagining. And in, just in fairness, position and those type things don't mean as much in our culture as they did in other cultures, but still, to fall at someone's feet, he is desperate. He is saying, you are the greater, you are the Lord, and he implores him to come to his house, for he had an only daughter, about 12 years of age, and she was dying. He's imploring him. He's falling at his feet. He's saying, he's acknowledging Jesus' lordship. And he knows that Jesus is the only one who can save his daughter. Complete and total desperation on his part. Jesus is going to go. As Jesus went, the people pressed around him. Again, that crowd that was always there. And there was a woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years. And though she had spent all her living on physicians, she could not be healed by anyone. Let's just stop right there. So he goes on, there's this huge crowd, always all around him, this crowd pressing in on him. And then this poor woman who had a discharge of blood for 12 years. In our culture, society, we throw that under the broad spectrum of female health issues, right? Not a good situation, very health-wise, damaging, quality of life, exceedingly damaging. Imagine this taking place as we have here in a system where a bodily discharge of blood made you impure. It made you unclean. No one would touch you. Literally, no one would touch you because it made them unclean. Why did the priest and the Levite pass on the other side of the road when we get to soon? The man who was attacked on the way back from Jericho, they would have been made unclean. They couldn't participate in any of the aspects of religious life. Okay? We're not going to go into that from, some kind of judgmental view of the Old Testament system of the laws of cleanliness. That would be a lengthy discussion, and I'm certainly not going to sit in judgment on it. It's the way it was. But this woman's health condition made her a social outcast. It's not like she was a leper, but in all honesty, it wasn't far off. Wasn't far off. Anybody touched her, they became unclean. And very interesting, this is always fascinating. Luke, who's writing this gospel, Luke is the beloved what? Paul refers to Luke as the beloved physician. Luke was, in our day, he'd be an MD. He was an educated man. He was a man of medicine. What does he say? And though she had spent all her living on physicians, everything she had, she could not be healed by anyone. That's coming from the doctor. Doctors don't admit inability readily. Nobody could heal this woman. Nobody could stop this flow of blood. And what does she do? She came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment, and immediately her discharge of blood ceased. And when Jesus said, "Who is it that touched me?" And Jesus said, "Who was it that touched me?" When all denied it, Peter said, "Master, the crowds surround you and are pressing in on you." But Jesus said, "Someone touched me, for I perceived that power has gone out from me." And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling and falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched him and how she had been immediately cleaned. And he said to her, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." Insight here. She wasn't supposed to touch anybody. She wasn't supposed to touch anybody, but she snuck up through the crowd, meaning she'd pushed past all those people, and touched just the fringe of Jesus' garment. And immediately she was healed, and Jesus knows it. Now, Jesus knows everything, and it's something we struggle with as we read about his earthly ministry. It's easy for us now to know that Jesus, who still has a body, he is still fully human and fully God, and he's omnipresent. Can't get my mind around that. I've studied it, I've read. I can give you all the dogmatic explanations and Bible citations, but it's true. He's all those things, and he's omniscient. He still is. It's easy for us relatively to get our minds around it now because he's seated at the right hand of God the Father Almighty, right? Harder for us to make daily practical application of Jesus being omniscient while he was the man Jesus. And quick and in a nutshell, so to speak, Jesus just didn't make use of his divine powers all the time. He just didn't. Jesus was always omniscient. He always knew everything, and we cannot parse in our minds how the divine and human natures interacted, but he chose to operate without full use of his powers and abilities. Sometimes because it serves the gospel, because it serves his mission, he lets a little bit of it be known. Who touched me, right? When they came to arrest him, and he knocked them all down just by saying, "I am he." Just a little micro flash of his divine power, and it knocked them all down. But usually, Jesus, in his earthly ministry, did not make full use of his divine attributes. Why? Because that's what he needed to do to be our Savior. And the best explanation I've ever come up with for it, been using it for 35 years, when my kids were little and we would do wrestle time on the floor. My wife was always afraid I was going to hurt one of them. I managed to never do that, which, I mean, dads, hey, realistically, that's pretty fortunate. But I didn't, when I was wrestling my 3-year-old son, and he was 248-0, when I was wrestling him and didn't use all my strength, because I would have thrown him across the room and off the wall. No, he would always come from behind and win. I didn't use my power. Jesus didn't use all of his divine power. He didn't use his omniscience. Most of the time he didn't, but here he did. It was going to serve the purpose of the gospel. Someone touched me, for I perceive that power has gone out from me, power that could heal just because somebody touched him. And that wasn't the norm. We're not told all the time that this crowd pressing up against him would be healed just because they touched him. Jesus wanted this to happen. He wanted this act of mercy to be shown. He wanted it to be understood, just as when he touched the leper and healed him, he didn't mind that this woman who was unclean touched him, because Jesus came to make us all clean. The thing about being unclean, whatever it might be, different things that could make us unclean, they all had to do with us being less than. God is other. God is other. He doesn't leak. He doesn't have physical ailments and issues. He's other. The whole thing about the laws of cleanliness reinforced that concept in a way that everybody could get. But Jesus was the one, the new covenant, not the old, the new covenant, who came to make us all what? Clean. No matter what our status, no matter what our position, no matter what our issue, like, well, sin. So that's what's going on here. And when the woman saw that she was not hidden, she came trembling. She'd been conditioned by 12 years of being a pariah, ostracized. She came trembling. She was expecting to get scolded, put down. And falling down, doing what? Falling down before him, declared in the presence of all the people why she had touched them and how she had been immediately healed. She's both confessing what in her mind is her sin, because she pushed past all of them to get to him, and she's proclaiming the power of God, because just by touching him, she was healed. And he said to her, daughter, that's a term of endearment. How many people do you call daughter? Well, your daughter. Who else? No, daughter is a term of acceptance. It's a term of familial relationship. Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace. This isn't what today is passed off as faith healing. Her healing wasn't contingent on having faith. She was healed because she had the faith to come and pursue Jesus and push through the crowd, just like the men who brought their friend and lowered him down through the roof. It was a demonstration of faith, but it was the faith that brought them to the one who could heal. She got to the one who could heal. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace. Peace. What a concept. Peace. She had peace of now having this connection with the Savior, but she also had the peace of no longer having this social stigma, not to mention whatever the physical incapacitation that came from bleeding continuously for 12 years and all that goes along with that. Who knows? I'm not a medical person. I've never played one on TV. I'm not going to try to explain it. But now she has peace. And it's only in him that we ever have peace. And we need to appreciate that peace. If you don't have peace, if I don't have peace, need to spend some time, some prayerful, faithful, bound in the scriptures, reflection, introspection. What am I missing? How do I, a redeemed child of God whom he calls son, we are the sons of God. He calls us the sons of God, for that is what we are. He calls her daughter. We're his children. We're his brothers. We are dearly loved by the one who has power over all this stuff. The only one who can make us clean. The only one who can save us. In that knowledge, in that relationship, in that walk, because but faith is a hand-in-hand walk with the Savior. If in that we don't have peace, then we're missing it. We're missing something important. We need to appreciate, dwell in, focus on, meditate upon, and thank the Lord for the peace that surpasses all understanding. My peace I give you, not peace as the world knows do I give you. It's a different kind of peace altogether. The ruler of the universe, our Creator, isn't mad at us anymore. He took out his wrath on his Son on the cross, and his Son says, come to me and you're okay. Even if it's at the last moment, thief on the cross. Truly today you will be with me in paradise. Appreciate the peace that you have. While he was still speaking, so this is in the moment, this dynamic thing that's taking place here, this powerful demonstration of his love, forgiveness, healing power. her faith. While he was still speaking, someone from the ruler's house came and said, "Your daughter is dead. Do not trouble the teacher anymore." You get what he got wrong? I can't help it. I'm going to jump in. What does he call him? This person who came from the house. And I'm not putting him down. He just didn't know who they were talking about. They thought that Jesus' ability to do something was limited by the fact that she still had the breath of life in her. Well, the one who is here, who's speaking, who's on the way to Jairus' house, is the one who put the breath of life in all of us. Back there in Genesis, in our first father. There's nothing he can't do. He's not the teacher. He's more. And it was a term of respect. You didn't just call anybody teacher, but it's not what he is by half. But Jesus, on hearing this, answered him, "Do not fear, only believe, and she will be well." Do not fear. Do not fear. Do not fear. Jesus is in charge. And as long as we know that, there's no reason to fear. But he's here in the flesh, literally, in his earthly ministry as the one come down from the Father. And he says, don't fear, only believe, and she will be well. And the two are mutually exclusive. Belief casts out fear. Perfect faith, we're told, casts out fear. Where there is faith, that trust relationship, that reality that we are in the hollow of our Father's hand, where that exists, there is not room for fear. Remember that the next time you're scared. I'm going to remember it the next time I'm scared. I'm a big grown man. I spend a lot of time scared, and I shouldn't spend a single moment scared. But the more I spend time in the Word, the more my faith walk with my Savior, my Redeemer, becomes who I am. The more Christ is formed in me, the more quickly I dispel and displace the fear. And I'm not the one who displaces it. He is. He says, do not fear, only believe. That's the answer for everything. I don't care what it is. And Jesus doesn't always heal. Sometimes the sickness serves his purpose. Jesus doesn't always bring back from the dead. The world would be a really crowded place if that were the case. But in this instance, he is going to heal. He's telling this man, she will be well. And let's get that. When he heals, it's because of his grace and his mercy, and it is to his glory. And it's not up to me to tell him when that is. It's not my place. It's not my place. Perspective is very important in all this. And when he came to the house, he allowed no one to enter with him except Peter and John and James and the mother and father of the child. Peter, James, and John. John, James, and Peter. It's always those three. Andrew was Peter's brother, but he doesn't make it into the inner circle. It's these three who repeatedly, sometimes it's Andrew, he's kind of right there on the cusp, but these three are the ones who go up on the Mount of Transfiguration. These three are the ones who get to do things like this, where they go in to the house. And frankly, there wouldn't have been room for all of them. But it's okay that Jesus had an inner circle. It's okay that John is the disciple whom Jesus loved. He was his best friend. He was a man. He had a best friend. God has a heavenly council. In that heavenly council, Gabriel and Michael have a higher place than others of the sons of God. It's the way it works. At my job here in this world, there are those who have higher positions than I do. Why? Because that's the way the company works, right? God has an order of things. And here in his earthly family, Jesus had Peter, John, and James. They were the ones who got to go in and see stuff like this. Them and the mother and father of the child, and all were weeping and mourning for her. We don't weep very well. is in Western culture. And then I want to speak exclusively or beyond what I should, but other cultures, Latin American culture, they do a much better job of weeping and mourning than we do. In Middle East culture, they certainly do a better job of weeping and mourning than we do. We are very stoic, and I don't think it's healthy. It's the way I am, but it's just the way we are. When they say they were weeping and mourning, it means they were weeping. They were crying, all the people there. But what's his response to that? Do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping. That's a powerful statement. He's speaking the truth in spite of the fact that at that moment, that's not what was going on. The girl was getting cold in the other room. Okay, she was dead. There's that aspect to it. He's saying that what you see isn't what's going to be. We can say that about our spiritual reality here in this life. What we see is not what is going to be. Important thing to remember. The book ends differently, okay? But there's something else here as well. Let's go on and read, and we'll come back to pick up this point. Do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping. And they laughed at him, knowing that she was dead. But taking her by the hand, he called, saying, Child, arise. And her spirit returned, and she got up at once. And he directed that something should be given to her to eat. And her parents were amazed. And he charged them to tell no one what had happened. Do not weep, for she is not dead, but sleeping is connected with, do not tell anyone what had happened. Why? Why? Because Jesus had compassion, and he healed, and he brought back from the dead. He cast out demons. He did all these things, but he didn't want that, the miraculous, to be what he was about, because we get fixated on it, right? He didn't want to be the freak show. He wanted it to be about him being the Savior of the world and the message of the gospel, that doing its work. Because those who get fixated on the fabulous, who are mesmerized by the miraculous, they don't stick around all the time when things turn bad. They're the ones who are in the crowd yelling, crucify. Crucify. Why? Because the Jesus who was up there, marched out by Pontius Pilate, having been flogged and with a crown of thorns on his head, he didn't look really powerful. He knew everybody. He knew the way they'd flip and change. He wants you to believe because you believe. And he has compassion and mercy because he has compassion and mercy because that's who he is. But he didn't want to be the miracle worker. He was a miracle worker, but he didn't want that to be his identity and his ministry. His ministry was proclaiming the salvation that the Father had ordained from eternity and that he was here to fulfill. All right, we are going to stop there. Next time, Jesus sends out the apostles. Thing for us to go into. I do pray, I hope that this ministry, this teaching, what we do here at Decoding the Deception is a blessing to you. If it is, pass it along, share it with others, put it out on your social media feed. I can't put anything on your social media feed, can't do it, but you can. You can share it with others. That's how we get the word out, and this message can be a blessing and a benefit to others as it is to you. So do that. It is appreciated. This is Matthias 76, and together we are decoding the deception. God bless, and have a great day.